I'm super excited for this one, Sean. I think this has been really almost 4 years in the making. I think we've known each other now through video
Yep.
for about 4 years. We got introduced through a similar coaching program. Us guys like to level up for some reason. It's in the blood. And we got to talking the other day on a morning show that you and I are part of, the MLO Live show, Tuesdays and Thursdays with Scott Hudspeth.
Right.
And you can get on there at mloliveshow.com. And we were talking about the secret language of sales. And we're not going to say the dirty word.
You mean the long version, not the text version?
Yeah.
The text version is NLP. The long version is neuro-linguistic programming.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people get scared by that because they're like, oh, wait, somebody's trying to mind control me, right?
You're damn straight, Skippy.
So let me ask you a question, right? So when you say the secret language of sales, why do you think that phrase lands better than NLP? What do you think it is? And I think
it's a good question. Well, first of all, I'll tell you this. But by the way, I feel blessed that I'm on this with you. You're like an absolute legend, and you always have been for me. So, and a great mentor and a coach. So, I look at you as much as a peer as I do as a coach and a mentor, and like the OG in that.
Same here, man. Same here.
And we'll probably get into this, where my background is a little bit different than most.
It is.
But I could tell you that I don't care what you call it. It works because, like, when I met her 6 months later, I asked her to marry me, and she, at some point about a year and a half later, she goes, "You used that NLP crap on me, didn't you?" And I go, "You, Sean, purple mohawk, checkered sneakers, high school, Dick Kennedy's t-shirt,
my man,
skateboard, checkered sneakers, my wife, board certified doctor, valedictorian, 500 kids, certified genius." And all I said really was, "When is now a good time to marry me?" Obviously, you realize what a great opportunity it is. And if you pick that sentence apart, it's a little frightening. So yeah, I think if I said to you, "Hey, Devin, let's have a conversation about neuro-linguistic programming. We're going to go deep on the syntax of language and the inflection of your voice to actually to bring people into your circle, and then eventually convert them into maybe a lead or a customer," versus saying, "Hey, Devin, do you want to figure out, like, every time you show up to an appointment and you take out 150 keys, you could just go, okay, I talked to him for a minute and a half before I showed up, and I know it's only going to be one of these 10 keys. And once I look around the house and I see the outfit he's wearing, I can get rid of 5 of them. So there's only 5 left."
Yeah.
And increase your closing ratio from 60. Like mine, when I got really good at it, went from 65% to probably 88%, 89. And bear in mind, the only difference between that 89% and 100 is, one is either the customer is just plain dumb, or I'm dumb because I'm still trying to force them to make a decision when they really shouldn't be making a decision with me, or I shouldn't be trying to force them because they're not my what I would call ideal client to begin with.
Okay, well, let's explore that. So what do you mean when you say that, and how do you define the ideal client for you?
So when I moved to the mortgage space 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to rebuild my career. And prior to that, I was a real estate agent for 25 years. I would do 75 transactions a year with me and 3 people. And I pretty much did the same amount of business that most people do in a year and a month. And the reason why I was able to do it was because I had really good people around me, and I know how to leverage with technology and some stuff like that. And you and I are both kind of like mad scientists behind the scenes with technology.
There's some nerd inside of both of us, for sure.
Oh, without question. It's the only way you can do that. It's the only way you can leverage yourself like that.
But no question.
I can tell you one of the better, what I call shadowing. I don't know if you ever heard of that, where you follow somebody around for a day. So early in my career, probably somewhere in between the middle or somewhere like in about the middle of my career, I met a guy named Carlos Gusto in Miami. And Carlos was the guy on The Rich and Famous. He was in the helicopter with Carlton Sheets, and he basically, I sold that one, I sold that one, and I sold that one. And he was flying over South Beach in Miami, and he was pointing at John Travolta's house. He was pointing at Streisand's house. He was
the most prominent real estate.
Right. And I said to him, I go, "How did you get into that specific lane?" And he said, "Oh, that was easy. I just chose." And I just swore I only wanted to work with high-end people. And I found a guy who specialized in it, and I just followed his path. So when I got on the mortgage side, I said to myself, if I'm going to rebuild what I call my perfect audience or my perfect ideal client profile that I'm going to work with, what are the 10 things that I want? And one of those things was working with people that were either as smart or smarter than me, working with somebody that makes either 250,000 or more or has access to 250,000 or more, somebody that is coachable and willing to follow direction, someone who is practical, and someone who is analytical or analytical and drivers. And the reason why I mean analytical and drivers, and we can dig into that in a second, but that means that if I give Devin all the information that makes sense and he's practical and the numbers, the analytical piece line up, and I'm actually in rapport with him because I actually make the same or more than he does, and I play in the same sandbox, there's no reason why he shouldn't do business with me, which means it's a layup. So when I did real estate, I didn't want to go to your house until I knew I was 60% closed before I got there. That I had a chance of being, my closing ratio was at 60% or more before I even showed up. And there's a way to set yourself up for that, which is a whole nother conversation, but I didn't want to show up unless I had the best shot.
Yeah. Well, and I want to ask you a question there, because what you're talking about is defining an avatar, right? Like, who is your avatar? Who is it that you want to communicate with? Who do you want to speak with directly, right?
Who, what, when, where, why, how.
There it is, right? The basic fundamentals of sales. Okay.
Right.
So now you've defined the avatar and you know what you're looking for.
Let me give you the opposite of that for a second.
Okay.
I moved in my real estate career at one point, my company was bought by a guy who owns one of the largest boutique privately held real estate brokerages in the Northeast, a guy named Jim Weichert Realtors, right?
Okay.
And when he bought my company, I worked in a town called Hoboken, which is on the river of New Jersey, and it faces Manhattan. It's literally on the border of Manhattan. It's a mile square. It had 16 blocks long. It had 5,500 realtors at the time. And there was about 650 transactions a year, which meant 1,200 sides that we were all fighting over. And I would do 75 of those a year, like with my eyes closed. And he came to me and he goes, I want you to move your business. So I'm now going to move from the urban community to the suburban community because my kids are younger, and I'm going to make that transition. It's about 40 miles inland.
Okay.
And one of the decisions I made was I didn't want to work with a certain stereo ethnicities. And quite honestly, I didn't want to work with the Middle Eastern community because it was so painful, because I did it for 15 years.
Right.
Every deal I had to fight with over like a quarter or 15 cents. And I said, I'm going to not do that business if I don't have to. I'm going to choose a different business to do. And when I got to the suburbs, the manager said, you could just move over here about a mile and a half in this community and do 400 more have access to 400 more transactions a year. And I said, that sounds great, but that's not me. That's not my plot. That's not my ideal client profile. Yeah. And what I realized was really quickly was when you know your numbers should help you to define your client profile, because if you're working in a space where it takes more effort, it's more friction, you lose more deals, or you got to get more to get more. You got to get more opportunities in order to get more deals. At that point, maybe you need to shift gears to where you don't fight as hard. You're swimming downstream, and the people you're dealing with are actually listening. They're coachable. Remember what I said, they're coachable, they're problematic, they're analytical, which means I can show them the numbers, which I'm good at.
Right.
So all that, now all of a sudden, when I back into it that way, you can understand why when I moved to the mortgage side, I knew exactly what I didn't want to do, and I knew exactly who I wanted to target. And I was able to go from, and you saw the numbers, I'm sure anybody on here that's in the space can look at them. I went from, in 6 months, did 6 million. I doubled my number the next year. I doubled that number again, and I'm on track to do probably between 40 and 50 million this year and it's year 3.5. May will be
you and I both met around the same time, and you were just getting started in this space. You were coming from the real estate space. So I've witnessed it firsthand. And I literally have watched you grow that market base from afar, because we're not with the same mortgage company. You're up north. You're with US Bank, correct, John?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep. And you're licensed in all 50. but you do primarily business just in New Jersey, right? That's the majority of your
Actually,
client
no,
base.
30% of what I do is in New Jersey. The rest of it is outside my state.
Okay. Yeah.
I
So,
do. It's actually the polar opposite because my ideal client profile is physicians. So 70% of what I do are doctors. By the way, if you listen to what I described, they fit that stereotype perfectly.
they do.
And it's a very unique market. What's interesting is what you probably didn't know is the day that I started in the business, 2 weeks later, I go to the sales meeting and I sit down and the president of sales comes out and goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the worst blank market I've ever seen in 30 years." And I looked at my now boss, who was always my mortgage guy for 30 years, and I went, "Go team." Like, okay. And rates went from 6% to 8%.
No question. Well, I remember that time, right? Because I've been in the industry for a little over 24 years.
Right.
And, you're talking about 2022. And I always tell this story. I say because we didn't notice it until July. We got fired in January and we didn't see it until July, right? And we just didn't know. We didn't get the memo, right? So then July turns around and we all of a sudden we went from, my team at the time was closing 250 plus transactions a year to 80 to 40 to 30.
Right.
The 12.
Yep.
And then we had to climb back up out of that. So there's no question about it. It was 100% the worst mortgage market. And some people try to contest and say maybe it was the 2008, 2009. I don't think it was. I genuinely think.
But if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. I remember your story, and I remember when I first met you, and I met you in Florida. Or actually, I didn't meet you. I met your wife in Florida, and your son or your mom,
Mother-in-law.
Yeah, mother-in-law in Florida.
Yep.
And I remember the story is, correct me if I'm wrong, you changed your avatar. You changed your ideal client profile from doing refis to doing acquisition loans.
100%.
Right. So all you did was, there's an expression of, if you ever read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and if you're watching this and you've never read it, you should read it. It's like it's the OG Bible of sales and success, personal success. And I think it's on chapter 3 because I've read it about 75 times. My mentor said, read this. I said to a guy named Michael Vance, if you Google him, he's the guy who invented the phrase thinking out of the box. He was Walt Disney's creative director. I said, "Mike, what's the one thing you could recommend doing that is like just a constant?" He said, "Read the book Think and Grow Rich." And I go, "Oh, I've read that book." He goes, "Yeah, but tell me what's in chapter 3." And I go, "I don't know." He goes, "Until you can do that on the fly," he goes, "read the book twice a year." He goes, "Read it once in the beginning of the year or once in the middle of the year." So I read it January and then August 12th, which is my birthday, those 2 times a year. And I read it. I did that for 20 years straight. And I can now say to you, the personal success formula is on chapter 3. The psychology of selling is on chapter 7. But if you take that book, he talks about 3 feet from the gold. He talks about the guys during the gold rush, and the guy's buying all the equipment, goes back home, he hits a little piece of gold, and he goes back home and he says, "Hey, Devin, give me some money. Give me all the money from the neighborhood. I'm going to take our money. I'm going to go dig for gold, and we're going to make millions." The guy goes back and he finds out that where he was digging, there was only that one piece of gold.
Yeah.
He gets so frustrated that he gives the equipment to the guy he was selling the gold to, like the broker, right, for like $1, like pennies on the dollar, and says, "I'm going back to New Jersey. That's it. I quit. I'm going to go back and make pizzas." Right. And the guy leaves. And the guy who's the broker, who's a smart guy, what he does, he hires a guy who is a geologist, and he goes, "Hey, this guy was digging right here." He goes, "Can you tell me where I should be digging?" And the guy goes, "Yeah." He goes, if you just take that equipment and move it over 3 feet, you should actually hit where the vein is." It turns out he just got a piece of gold on the corner that had to fall off. He got lucky. He goes, "But you can get rich." And the guy moved the stack of equipment over 3 feet, made millions. Yes. And really what you did, according to what I saw, was you just shifted your focus by 3 feet.
Well, you mentioned that, Sean, and that's something that I've seen multiple times in my career because I've had to reinvent our market 3 to 4 different times, right? I've always led larger groups, and when things transition and change, some people just throw up their hands and they get out. What I've found is if you double down and find a new solution and just attack it and go all in, you're going to find success in anything you do. If you're doing successful activity and actions, you just have to figure out what that little niche is, make the change and go.
You just had a word that I'm going to underline, score, circle, is you just have to find or know. The problem is it goes back to, And it's kind of like the Gary Keller, when I worked with him, said, what's the one thing you can do that changes everything and makes everything either easier or unnecessary? The problem is most people don't know what the one thing is because they don't know what the 69 things a day that they do in any given order are happening on a regular basis. So they don't track their numbers, they don't track their activities. And if you don't track your numbers and activities, you wake up one day where somebody pulls the curtain out. In January, you like you said, in January, I got fired. If you were tracking the numbers, and I'm sure you do, I know you well enough, but even then, even the best of us, you could be tracking everything and you might not notice it for 6 months. At least you noticed it 6 months in and were able to shift gears. Most people go broke because they never notice it because they don't know the numbers.
I'll tell you this. So I did know it was coming, right? We took that 6 months to figure out what the next step was. And I think that's where a lot of people don't prepare. And so what had happened was at that 6 month mark, it was literally when we were like, okay, this is what we're doing. We now have the plan. Now let's execute. Now, the problem is we probably need to know 6 months before that so that we could prepare and get everybody ready to make that transition. And I think even more so, a lot of times people won't make a move until it's already happened because it gets so uncomfortable. They realize they don't have a choice. And I think what happens is when they saw the pipeline drop off, even though I'm telling them, hey, this is happening, we got to make a shift. They weren't prepared to make that shift because it didn't hurt bad enough. Right.
It changes. People only change when they're either two things. One, they could see the money in it tomorrow, like instantly, or it's so painful where they're standing. It just, they have to move.
Yeah.
And when I would build teams and I would go from, when I built my team and I went from doing 25 units to now 50 units in a year, and then 50 units to 75, there's different people and different personality types that are going to be on your team. And what happens is people would say, like, I coach teams for KW and Maps Coaching at one point, and people would say to me, oh my God, but how do I fire this person? They've been with me forever. And I go, you don't. And they, well, what do you mean? Who's going to tell them? I go, they're going to tell themselves. And they go, well, what do you mean? I go, if you change the environment and you commit to it, either people will step up or step out.
So true.
And I go, and you have to commit to, like I could tell you, I just bought the Christie's Great Estates affiliate. Okay. I opened my doors in Jersey City. I bought the affiliate in 2007. And back then you were only going to do properties over 700. Well, that was like 35% of the market. The day I opened in 2008 in September, that was 3% of the market share. And I walked in my office and I said to everybody, and by that point I had already took $500,000 and built this office. And I basically set up a call center in the back of my office, and I put all the administrative people in the front, which was completely backwards from every other real estate office. And I said, and I brought my team in and I said, listen, I don't care if it's got a door on it, it's got a roof on it, we're going to sell it. And they're like, well, what about Chris? I go, I don't care if it's a trailer, we might not do it. But outside of that, if it's got a door and a roof on it, we're selling it. And what's interesting is you remember the fax machine, right?
Oh yeah.
I get like the jumbo hub, right? I get the fax comes in and I never saw this report before. It's like, hey, look at this. It's 187 companies in our MLS and we're number 62 out of 182 companies. And we're brand new. That's awesome. Right. So the next month I call up the real estate office and I go, hey, when does this report come out? She goes, it comes out on the 5th of the very month, Sean. So the following month, the 5th, I am literally camped out with my coffee, leaned up against the machine, waiting for the report to come in to see where we rank.
The ratings
report comes in. I'm watching page 8. I'm like, wait a minute. Last week there was page 9 and 10. What the hell? Right. First of all, I look at the report and I go, wow, we're number 32 behind some of the biggest companies. We got 10, like whatever. I'm like, holy crap. I call up the real estate. So I said to the woman, I go, hey, wait a minute. I go, I think my fax is broken because I only got 8 pages. And I know last month I got 12. She goes, well, those other 32 companies went broke last month, Sean. They're out of business. We're now down to 140 companies.
Yeah. That's
when reality set in. And I knew that I didn't no longer needed 3 listings to sell one house. I needed 10. Yeah. So when Jim Weicker came to me and said, how do you manage 110 listings as an individual with like 3 people on a team? I go, Jim, in order to sell one house, I need 10. So in order to keep my goals the same, which was 10 deals a month, I needed 100 transactions. I needed 100 listings. What I didn't know, and goes back to what you were saying, was I didn't look at all the numbers. I didn't realize that not only did I need the listings, but I also the prices were cut in half, so my volume was half.
Mm,
So
yeah.
if I really had done the math right, I needed 20 listings to make the same amount
Yeah.
of money.
That's it. No, you're right. But you were able to pivot when a lot of people didn't, right?
Right.
And you went all in and doubled down on that. And this is where a lot of people stop because it's
Quit.
double the work for the same money. In your case, it was double the work for half the money because the volume had gone down, right?
Right.
But you didn't go out of business.
No.
And I think that's where a lot of people get lost in this industry is they get focused on the good years that they've had. And when those years change and they're still having success, it's just not quite on the same level. They forget about where this business has taken them over the
Right.
long-term time.
Oh,
I've done
absolutely.
very well here in this space, and it's because I've been able to pivot in every market, and I know that's the same thing for you, Sean, and I don't get scared when things change. I double down and push harder.
When things change, I get excited, actually. And it's been a theme in my life. Like when I got out of the Army, I was 17. My uncle got me a job in the union. I was in the elevator and escalator union, and they had those giant electromagnetic switches, like the relays that you see, like Uncle Fester, right?
Oh,
Where
yeah.
the sparks are flying. Well, that was in the early 80s, and they were changing that to what they would call computers. And they were pretty much like what you bought at Radio Shack, which was they were made with 880 circuit boards. And
Mhm.
they took out cabinets that were 4 feet by 2 feet by 10 feet high and put a cabinet in that was probably 2 feet wide by 6 feet high and 36 inches deep. And all the old guys on the union said, I don't want nothing to do with that, kid. Well, I raised my hand. I was like, you can teach me whatever you want. That in the short 10 years or 12 years I was in that industry, I became I was the youngest troubleshooter in the business. I was the highest paid maintenance man within 5 or 6 years. And my uncle was like, out of 2,000 people in our union, what the hell, who did you sleep with? And I go, if anybody, I had to sleep with you, and I didn't want to do that. So the only other way was to go find a different approach, which is what you said.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was everybody else was afraid of that change. When I got in the mortgage space, I mean, like short sales.
Yep.
How do you get really good at doing Sean, how'd you become the short sale expert? Oh, easy. I had 10 houses on my own. I sold 7. I got caught with 3, and I had a short sell my own three of my own houses
Mm,
versus doing bankruptcy. So you get really good at it.
yeah.
Then all of a sudden I did 300 or 400 short sales because I knew how to do it. So I believe that change creates opportunity as long as
Does.
you embrace it.
That's it.
If you like, I'm going through this right now where I built out a website for the Knights of Columbus, and you can only imagine trying to explain that this is the consumer side, here is the membership portal, the what, right? Trying to explain the average age in the room is 60, 70 years old or 80, 70 years old. So
Yeah.
I think if you learn anything from this today is embrace change
Yeah.
and do it faster before anybody else.
Let me tell you something, Sean. The way I look at it is you embrace it. Let's say that adversity is a brick wall.
Yeah.
You figure out how the hell you run through that fucker. Because let me tell you something. I'm not letting a brick wall get in my way, right? I'm going to do what it takes to get to the other side of that because I'm not going to lose. It doesn't matter, right? And that's the mentality you have to take. And let me tell you something. When you do that, you find a way to win. You find it. It's in there somewhere, and you can't give up. You just got to push yourself through it.
So let's circle back to neuro-linguistic programming, right?
I was about to. I'm glad you brought that up, Sean.
So you just said, hey, it's a brick wall. Most people hear brick wall and they think like, okay, game over, lay down, play dead. Get in the box and wait, as my coach used to say.
Yeah.
And there's you can use neurolinguistic programming to either, so let me define it first, right? Neuro, the brain, linguistics, language, programming, creating a series of language that gets a same response or similar response each time, program, right? Neurolinguistic programming, right? So I'm going to get inside your head. I'm going to use some really sophisticated language and speech patterns to get you to make a decision. Good or bad, it is what it is, right? By the way, people have been doing it for thousands of years. Guys like some of the greatest speakers on the planet, Bill Clinton, Gandhi.
Yeah.
By the way, Gandhi did it, never said a word. He moved the entire country, didn't say anything. He did it with visual cues.
That's
Right.
right.
So we'll circle back to what you were saying about the wall, right? So you could either use neuro-linguistic programming to program somebody else to make a decision. Hey, Devin, obviously you realize what a great opportunity is to work with me. When is now a good time to make the decision to sign the contract? Right. So I just told you that, hey, you trust me, you like me, and I know you want to make a decision, sign the contract. Because you really only hear 6% of the words I'm saying. What's interesting is you could use that same technology to program yourself. And if you've seen Tony Robbins, who I worked with years ago, he teaches you how to use neuro-linguistic programming or NLP to program yourself
That's
and
right.
create your self-talk. And your self-talk, and I would say the wall, I'm going to plow through the wall, right? When I met a guy named Stu Middleman, who, if you Google him, he's a pretty interesting guy. He was the first guy to run across the United States, like back-to-back marathons.
Yeah.
And he studied like these people in Guyana and all these other people to go do this. And when I hired him to coach me, this is probably 20 years ago, more 25 years ago, I hired him to coach me. I paid him $500 a month to talk to him on a phone because he was in California. He goes, okay, record your gait. And I go, my what? He goes, running on the treadmill. Now, bear in mind, back then, you had to go get somebody with a VCR, record it, stick this tape in the FedEx, ship it across the country. 2 weeks later, the guy said, okay, I got the tape. Right. So we get on our first coaching call. Do you know that he would interrupt me for the first 3 coaching calls, which is to the tune of $1,500, and said, until we straighten out your language patterns, we're not going to talk anymore. And I go, okay, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you keep saying the word problem. If you talk to me now, I don't use the word problem. I use the word challenge.
Yeah.
Because a problem is a wall. You can't go through it. A challenge is like a rock in the middle of the river where the water can flow around it.
That's right.
Right. So, I mean, so when we talk about sales language, for lack of a better word, we're going to use that now. We'll use that from here forward so we don't scare people away if we didn't already. Using that to program yourself. Hey, I think you would agree with me. There is 99.9% of what happens in your life is controlled by one thing and one thing only. It's the person inside the skin. It's the 5 inches between your ears, right? Like I say, golf, my kids say, why, Dad, why do you love golf? It's the only game that the ball doesn't move and it takes place in the 5-inch span between my ears.
Yeah.
So like I think if you can help somebody to first learn that only 50% of what you say is in the conversation is only 6% of what of a statement is actually heard. According to Harvard, they only hear 6% is the words, the actual syntax. 38 to 40% is I'm sorry, they have 38 to 40% is actually the tone at which you say that and the rate or speed at which you say it at, how quickly or how slowly you talk. You're from the South. If I talked to you 25 years ago before I was trained, I would have scared the hell out of you and you would have been like, oh my God, that city slicker kid, because I talked at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But now when I talk to somebody from South, I talk a lot slower, very purposefully. Right. The other piece of that puzzle is
I want to steal something real quick before you move on, Sean. You did something back there, and if somebody's listening in, they may not have caught it, but he started the statement off by saying, I think you agree with me. And then he gave me what he wanted me to agree with him on. And if you watched me, I'm shaking my head,
ding, ding, ding.
agreeing with everything that Sean's telling me. Right. And if you did the same thing, that's what he's talking about when he's talking about NLP or the secret language of sales.
By the way, 55% of it is your body language. And here's what's interesting. It's called cold reading. That's like a whole nother layer. But as I'm watching your head bob up and down and I'm watching the bill of your hat do this, if I see it start going side to side, if you're listening to this in your car and you're not watching, and I say, hey, before I get started, you obviously realize, and you're shaking your head the other way, I'm going to pause and I'm going to recalibrate. I'm going to put a different, believe it or not, I'm going to take out my gun. Like when I was in the military, I was like in the special forces. I used to carry this thing called a grenade launcher. It was an M16 or an AR-15 on top, and it had a grenade thing on the bottom.
Yeah.
So if I'm shooting at you with bullets and all of a sudden you start shaking your head the other way, I may actually put a grenade in there and shoot a grenade at you instead, because you're not hearing what I'm saying. So visual cues are like paramount, first of all.
Yeah.
But and by the way, I say it all the time, one of the greatest secrets to sales is when you first start, get a mirror, put the mirror in your office and talk into the mirror or talk on your computer on like a Zoom with you where you could see your face because people can hear you smile over the phone.
They can.
And if you're not smiling, they're not smiling. You
That's
create
right.
rapport that way.
Well, our buddy Scott says this all the time, and I think it's a great way to start every conversation off with, which is leave people better than where you found them, right?
Absolutely.
And if you walk into the conversation with that as the mentality, you're going to be smiling already because you're going to go, man, how do I make this person feel better than where I left them,
There's
right?
only one way to do it. You have to ask questions without using the words I or me.
Mm,
You have to shift the focus away from you and on them. And the only way you can do that, and by the way, it's a ridiculously hard exercise. To my mentor had me do it for years, is have conversations without using the words I or me. By the way, you can't say anything. You can't even reply to somebody unless they ask you a question. Or you can ask them a question about them and say, how's your day? Or what do you do? Or
well, you just said something you alerted me, and I know we're getting close to wrap up time, so I'm going to bring this out because I want to get back to some of the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about today. You talked about in our initial call before we jumped on here, figuring somebody out in 3 questions, and I think
yep.
that's a great way to finish this off. So, what are you listening for, and what do those 3 questions sound like?
You want to talk to them about a recent acquisition or a purchase if you're in the sales business.
Mhm.
And really what you're trying to do is figure out their, what I'm going to call sales strategy, right? Their personal, and by the way, it's not something written down. It's actually programmed into them from when they were a child. And if you deal with the, like I said in the beginning, if you dealt with the Middle Eastern community, they're trained from childhood that without negotiating is like a sport. It's fun. And if you're not
It
negotiating,
is.
you're just not having fun. But I'll give you, I'm going to give you 2 definitive things you need to watch and look for, and then
Okay,
I'll make it really simple.
I'm all ears.
Is people are amiable, meaning they're happy-go-lucky. They're drivers, analyticals, or expressives. Devin is an expressive, but he's also a driver, analytical. He's an expressive and then what I would call analytical, meaning that I only know that because I've talked to him, but I could just
Yeah.
look and see red hat, all the stuff going on in the background. If you look behind me, dark blue, black, gray, right? Analytical, right? So once you figure out which one of those that person is, analytical, driver, expressive, amiable. By the way, you could just look at them in most cases. If they show up in a yellow shirt, expressive.
Yeah.
And then you want to find out, are they moving away from pain or towards pleasure?
Mm.
My house is too small. I only have 2 bedrooms. I need 3. I really don't care. I don't need to be in the house. Whenever we get there, usually that's the kid who's on a trust fund, or usually those people, they're only about 15% of the population. So don't worry about those. Usually you might even want to just not even work with them because they're a whole nother breed. And then there's internal decision maker, external. We talked about this when you said, hey, I always start out by saying, Sean, you already know. The problem is if he says to me, I already know, and I'm an external decision maker and I take in
Mm.
information from everybody in the neighborhood, and I don't care what I know because I don't feel I'm not comfortable in my own skin. So I solicit everybody else's opinion to make a decision. And here's a good example of that. They go buy a car. Hey, Devin, when you bought that car, did you go there by yourself or did you go with the family? Oh, no, I took my sister, my brother, and my cousin. Okay, great. Ding, ding, ding. External decision maker.
Yeah.
Hey, Devin, did you know exactly the car you wanted to buy before you got there? Oh, absolutely. I knew exactly the car. I knew the color. Internal decision maker. They don't care. They've been doing their research. They've been doing it by themselves on their computer, right? Hey, Devin, why are you buying a new car? Well, my other car's falling apart. Moving away from pain or towards pleasure? Moving away from pain, right? What's important about the car you drive? Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? Not an expressive. Expressive wants a bright color, right? The analytical or the driver, they just want a freaking car. Just give me the keys. I want to get in the car and I want to go. I don't care about the sales pitch. Just give me the keys, right? So when you start asking questions and I say, have you bought a house before? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. Well, yeah, I brought the whole family. My wife and I made the decision. Okay, you didn't buy it before you got married. Nope. And when you made that decision, is there any other decision makers involved? Well, yeah, my mom and my dad were. Okay. Well, are you getting? Here's like a mortgage thing, right? Hey, are you getting a gift? Yes, I am. Are they part of the decision to buy the home? Well, yes, as a matter of fact, they are. So maybe we should get them on the call with us so that when we figure out the numbers, we make sure everybody's on the same page. Why would I do that? Because they're writing the check, and obviously, if they're an external decision maker and they value their parents' opinion,
Yeah.
just sell that person too at the same time, and that way you lose less deals.
100%. Well, you're bringing in all the decision makers. And in addition to that, you're giving them a comfort level with you because you actually have the foresight to say, hey, I want to bring you in on this. Because what happens a lot of the times when there are additional players that aren't involved is we don't bring them in and they have somebody else that they know. And the next thing you know, the client ends up going another direction because the decision makers, who were actually not the people that were on the phone, made the decision that they weren't involved because you didn't involve me. And now they're going to bring that business to somebody else who
But
is
you're gonna,
involving them.
and that's another layer, which is in the linguistic programming you'll learn. It's called future pacing.
That's it.
Devin, obviously, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Obviously, Mrs. DeBeek, do you have any questions? Nope. Devin, you got any questions? Nope. Tommy Jones, do you have any questions? Nope. Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page because obviously, you guys realize as soon as you leave this call, each one of you is going to run into somebody that knows somebody that's in the business. And obviously, what you're going to tell them is, we already got a great guy. He already knows what we're all thinking, and he's going to help us through the process. And bear in mind, I want you to solicit their opinion and bring it back to me because I just want to make sure that we're not missing something.
So walk them back through that,
Are we
Sean.
okay with that?
Yeah. Walk that back through because I know what you just did, but frame
Yeah.
that backwards, right? What did you just do there?
So basically what I did is I got you all to agree. First of all, I realized I made it. I'm pushing on the fact that if you show up with your parents and somebody else, you're an external decision maker, first of all. And that means that those two people are valuable to your decision. And you're not going to make a decision without them. You may listen to somebody without them, but you're not going to make the final decision without them.
That's right.
And what I just did was I doubled down on that and I pushed on it because I know like the answers to the test. So I'm gonna make sure I get extra credit on that one and push on it. Then I'm gonna say to you, hey, I'm future pacing. I'm telling him what's gonna happen.
That's it.
You're gonna get solicited by somebody else. If they're not trying hard enough, right? And now I'm saying to them, hey, listen, we're all on the same page. We're all in agreement that that's going to happen. Okay, great. So I'm not hiding anything under the curtain. I'm not trying to get a credit card from them saying, give me your credit card so I can hold you hostage. And then I'm even making it okay for them to solicit that information. But if you listen to what I said, I go, just be sure. And when I say just be sure, I do two things. I pause so that you hear air gap. Your brain stops. Their brain is going to stop and go, oh, wait, he's going to say something important because he stopped. And I'm going to say, be sure, just make sure. I raise my voice. Just make sure is an embedded command. I'm telling you, I'm commanding you, make sure. Don't make a decision without me. And then make sure that whatever they give you or whatever the information is, bring it back to me. So now what I'm doing is I'm making it okay for you to talk to them. It's not like you're sneaking up on them and not like you're sneaking up on me. You're not doing anything wrong. I'm telling you it's okay to talk to them. And I'm telling you, bring that information back to me. Why do I want them to bring it back to me? Is because we're going to make the decision together. I'm going to say, Devin, this is great. But the reality is our numbers are actually better or the same. And what's interesting is they don't even realize that you still have two other people that they have to actually bring into this equation. Did you talk to your mom and your dad about this? Well, no, not yet. Okay, great. Would you like us to get on a conference call with them? When's a good time for us to do that? Because obviously you don't want to make that decision on your own, right? Well, of course not. And what I'm doing is future pacing is all about setting yourself up for success.
That's it.
By illustrating what's going to happen in the future and then how you're going to be, how your unique value proposition answers what's going to happen in the future. So it's almost like you got a crystal ball. And here's the best part. When I tell people when I hang up the phone with a borrower and I say, Devin, did you make the offer yet? No, we're doing it tonight. Okay, great. Oh, and right before they hang up the phone, I'll say, oh, wait, I almost forgot. Devin, I'm going to put my realtor hat on for a second, okay? And I lower my voice and I say, okay, and I pause. And now all of a sudden they listen and they actually got to listen a little harder. I'm reeling them in. I'm going to say, Devin, you remember when you got married, right? You remember when you got divorced and your stomach was bothering, you're walking down the aisle and you're sweating and you got all that going on, right? Listen, I got to tell you, getting married, getting divorced, having kids, right? Public speaking. And the last one is getting a mortgage. They're the most stressful things on the planet, according to Harvard, right? And I'm not a smart guy, but Harvard is. I'm going to tell you that tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up and it's going to be just like when you got married. This time is going to be just like that time. And when you wake up tomorrow and you feel nauseous, don't worry about it. It's what they call buyer remorse. And by the way, I'm the mortgage guy, but if you wake up in the morning and you're writing a check for $500,000 to buy a house for $1.5 million, and it's all the money you have in the bank, and you don't feel sick to your stomach, first of all, cancel the offer, call a therapist, because there is something physically, mentally, and emotionally wrong with you. By the way, that's my close. So what happens? You wake up in the morning, you're sick as a dog. And you're like, holy shit, that guy knew exactly what he was talking about. Oh my God, I'm going to call Sean.
It just builds confidence. It builds confidence because you've told them what the reaction is going to be. You've told them what's going to happen after they leave the call with you. You've told them what the future is going to look like. And you've given them a command as to what to do when that happens. And the
Well, they don't know
command,
it's him, but yeah.
the command
I
leads them
programmed
back
their
to you.
brain. I programmed their, like
100%.
Pavlov's dog, knock on that knock, and the dog comes over looking for a biscuit.
But that's,
Exactly.
we're conditioned our entire lives. I used this analogy the other day. We go to the doctor's office, right? Okay, sign in. We already know that because it's an instruction. Hey, the doctor will be with you in a moment. Just sit right there. And we're going to sit right there. Okay, doctor's here. Go back to the room. Go back to the room. We already
Yep.
know it's going to be a nurse, right? Doctor
Yep.
comes in. They give you their
3
diagnosis.
minutes later.
Yep. Hey, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Yeah, we're going to get you your prescription that's going to be called in at such and such pharmacy. Check out with Denise on your way out the door, right?
Right.
We walk out the door. What you're doing is the exact same thing. You're telling them what's going to happen in the future. So when it does happen, they already know. The only reason we know all those sequences of the doctor is we've all been through it. What Sean's saying is you're painting the picture for them while you're having the conversation is what's next to come. But the command is always to come back to Sean, who's going to give them the next instruction.
So the way that one of my coaches explained it to me was, because did you ever go to Disney? I go, yeah. He goes, you ever go to the haunted house there? I go, yeah. He goes, did your friends tell you about like the guy who, when you walk in and as soon as you make the right, there's going to be a ghost there. It's going to make you jump out of your skin. And then when you, and like, have you ever been on a roller coaster that goes straight up and not go back down on the other side?
Yeah.
I mean, like, no, it's coming. Here's the difference between getting a mortgage. There's about 35 to 40 people involved in the transaction. If you're not a little scatterbrained, I don't care if you're splitting atoms or surgery, you're doing surgery, unless you've been doing the real estate business and or the mortgage business as long as I have, more than likely there's going to be a nuance in there that you haven't come across. But the good news is you have a great team of experts. You have me and Devin behind you. You don't have to worry. We're going to actually tell you before the actual scary stuff happens to look for it. And matter of fact, I say to people all the time, my goal is really only one thing. I have a really simple job. It's what I call my 100% zero promise. 100% no obligation and zero excuses. That I'm going to get you to a smooth and flawless closing on time, every time, no matter what. And I go, if I don't, okay, great. But I can tell you that is my promise to myself, that I'm going to do the best for Devin. And I can tell you the last piece of the puzzle and the most important, powerful word that we're going to work on together is called no. If I can't do it, it's the smallest, most powerful word in the English language. And if I can't get you what you want in the time you want, I'm just going to say, no, I can't do it. I'm going to send you to Devin or somebody else who can do it. I go, it's not worth it to me to lose our relationship together that we've spent this time putting together over a transaction. It's not going to change the way my kids eat or drink. They'll get a hamburger, they'll still get the cheeseburger, and I'll still get a Diet Coke. We're going to be fine. But I want to make sure you're comfortable in your decision. All we need to do now is simply finish the application. Can I have your credit card, by the way?
There it is. And there's the command. Hey guys, I hope you're really paying close attention and taking notes here. And if you're not, check Sean out on his podcast. You can find that on YouTube at the Lone Doctor Podcast. Sean's at YouTube at the Lone Doctor Podcast. I would imagine it's probably on the podcast network there
YouTube,
too, right?
On Apple. By the way, there is somebody who took the Lone Doctor Podcast and actually created the Lone Doctor Podcast 2, I guess. Make sure it's got my smiling face.
Sean Shallis. Yeah, Sean Shallis.
And it's got some kind of like wise ass remarks in it. That would be mine.
Yeah, that's our guy. So that's, and you can find Sean on Facebook too at Sean Shallis. Just go over there. Make sure that you follow Sean as well. Like his page, make a comment over there, right? That way we can keep bringing great content out there for people out there like Sean that are helping educate and providing clarity for sales, but also for consumers, right? And then again, over at Instagram at Lone Doctor Podcast. You can find him on Instagram at Lone Doctor Podcast. So if you're on any of those platforms right now, do us a big favor, go over there and follow Sean, like one of his posts, comment, and I know Sean will get back to you because Sean's a great guy like that. He gets back to his audience. So, Sean, we're going to close out with the lightning round.
Yeah.
Myth or fact? If you talk less, you close more.
If you talk less, close more. Fact.
Myth or fact? What's more powerful, the right question or the right framework?
Right framework.
One word or phrase you've removed from your vocabulary because it kills deals.
Time. Time kills deals. Always.
All right,
I
guys.
tell people all the time, delays in time. Because you don't need to make a decision doesn't mean that you shouldn't. Time kills deals.
Great stuff, brother. Well, again, Sean, thank you so much for joining us over here on the show. And as we said, if you want to find Sean, go find him. He's out there. Lone Doctor Podcast, the upstate northerner, Sean Shallis, with the witty comments and the quick talk, right, man? This guy's great at what he does. I've been following him for 4 years. You should follow him too. And I think we're going to wrap today, guys. So we went a little over on time, but I think this was a good one. I think we covered some really great topics. So again, Sean, brother, thank you so much. You're also a mentor of mine. And I'm sure I'll see you maybe tomorrow on the morning show.
Probably will. Always
Take care, guys. We will see you on the next one. And keep leveling up. Thanks for stopping by. You've been watching Loan Officer Success Live, where real strategies meet real success. Don't forget to subscribe now and share it with your teammates and keep leveling up because your next breakthrough starts here. If this fired you up, don't just watch success, go out there and build it.